All right, does anybody know what a composition is? No one knows. Josh? It The composition of an image is the way something is arranged. A composition, so when I'm talking about a composition being like a physical object, it's basically a collage. It's where you put multiple images together to create a piece. So today we're going to do like a space one. And all these images I got from NASA's website. They're all free to download high-res images for you to use. So everyone go to the astronaut.jpg image. So on the astronaut image, we want to take out this boring black background. That's what we want to do. We were going to replace it with that galaxy image. So sometimes it's easier to select the background than to try select the object. So this time we're going to select the background. So go up in Photoshop to your toolbar. And the fourth tool down, it'll normally be this object selection tool. But hold it down, and I want you to grab your magic wand tool. It's the fourth tool on the toolbar. Grab your magic wand tool. Does anybody remember how the magic wand tool works? It selects pixels that are of similar color. So go ahead and just click once in the black area. And you should just get your marching ants going around just this black area. It goes around the astronaut, goes around the space station, all that. But there's a few extra black areas that we still want. So the easiest way to do this is yours is going to look a little bit different than mine because I updated to 2021. But up at the top in your control panel, there'll be a word that says contiguous. It's like CONTIGUOUS. Uncheck the box that's to the left of that. There's like a little box next to it. Uncheck it. When you have contiguous on, it means it will only select pixels that are right next to each other. When you take it off, it'll select all the black pixels in the image, not just the ones next to each other. So now that we've turned contiguous off, so make sure it's turned off, and you click in that black area. Click once, it will deselect everything. Click again, and you should see the marching ants all over your image now. Because now it went through and selected not just the black pixels that are next to each other, but all the black pixels in the image. And for us, this is a little too much. Okay, we don't want all this, like we don't want the solar panels cut out and everything. So what we're going to do is up here in the control panel, there's a thing called tolerance. Tolerance is how many different shades, like basically one step away from the pixel that you select, is it going to try select. The default is 32. Okay? That's just what Adobe decided they like, 32. And you can adjust that tolerance. If you use a green screen behind someone and you have it properly lit, you can adjust your tolerance to like 2. And it will literally be only 2 shades of color different. Let's adjust it down to 10 since we're working with solid black. And click again so it deselects, and click again so it selects. Okay, that's a little bit better. Let's try 5. So deselect again, Click again. Okay, now we're missing a lot. See how we're missing a large part of the sky in our selection? We went a little too far. So let's go back up to 10. I kind of like that. Deselect, reselect. When you're trying to make a selection and you're trying to make a mask, the best thing to do is get your selection as good as possible before you create the mask. Majority of the time, about 9 times out of 10, you're going to need to use more than one selection tool. So we kind of want to get rid of the solar panels and all these extra little things it's trying to cut out on the astronauts and on the space station, and add in this black area back at the top. We want to add back in. So everyone go over back to where your magic wand tool was, click and hold, and grab your quick selection tool. And if you notice at the top of your page, up in your control panel, you'll see the kind of like the quick selection tool button, the paintbrush, so just kind of the regular paintbrush, the paintbrush with a plus, and the paintbrush with a negative. When you use just the regular paintbrush, what it does is it creates a new selection each time you click. But we want to either add or subtract from the selection we already have. So to add to the selection, which means we want to grab more, use the plus. If we want to subtract from the selection, we use the minus. Now these are part of our selection, but we want to get rid of them. So we're going to add them or subtract them. We're going to subtract them. So go ahead and grab the minus and just quickly start painting over it. So go ahead and paint over all your areas that you don't want to be included in the selection. So just continue using your quick mask. I like the quick mask just because it's pretty simple and the algorithm for it is pretty good. All right, I'm gonna just clean up my image real quick. Fix some of my astronaut. And use the plus where your little brush is up at the top. And now use that plus one to add back in that little bit of sky or anything that you messed up. So you can use that plus, add a little bit of sky. If you messed up, you need to add something back in, you can. So once you have your selection, nice, as clean as you can get it, go to your layers panel, and down at the very bottom of your layers panel, there is a kind of like a white box with a circle cut out of it. It kind of looks like a big thing of cookie dough, and you already took the cookie out of it. If you hover over it, it'll say add a mask. So if you click that, it's going to create a layer mask for the layer in Photoshop that you have selected. And this is what your image will look like. If you notice, what we had selected is what stayed showing. What we didn't have selected is what disappeared. These gray and white checkerboard in Photoshop, that's basically telling you nothing is there. It's completely transparent. Nothing, absolutely nothing is there. But we want to show the astronaut. We don't want to show the black background. So if you go over to your layers panel, make sure your layer mask is the one selected, not the image next to it that shows what image is on the layer, but it's the mask. So it's like the black and white cutout. Make sure that's selected and hit Control-I on your keyboard for invert. Control-I on your keyboard. Nope. There you go. Control-I. So now you have your astronaut and your spaceship. Go over oops, sorry. Go over to your space.jpg image. So on your space.jpg image, go over to your layers panel and you'll notice the layer is called background and it has a little lock on it. What you're going to want to do is double click that lock so it turns into layer 0. When the lock is on there, we can't move the image. But when it's on layer 0 and you unlock it, we can now move it. So make sure you're on your move tool. If you need the shortcut, it's V on your keyboard. And using your move tool, I'm not on my move tool, I'm on Act 4 tool. Okay, using your move tool, click and drag it up to your astronaut image. Wait till it switches and then come down and drop it. So that's another way to place an image into Photoshop. You can click and drag it over. Okay, now that you have your space image here, we want to go behind our astronauts. So remember, to put it behind, you take your layer with your space image on it, and you click and drag it below the layer with your astronauts on it. And now it's below your astronauts. Remember in Photoshop, that order is the order that the layers are stacked on top of each other. So whatever layer is on the bottom, the lowest layer is whatever's on the bottom of your image. The top layer is whatever's going to be on the top. All right, so let's go ahead and make that galaxy image the full size of the background so we don't have any of this checkerboard anymore. Make sure you have that layer selected, and then it's Control T for transform on your keyboard. And make it as big as you need to. So you use Control T on the keyboard, and then once you make it as big as you need to, just hit Enter. So that was your normal mask that we did there. We kind of selected the background first and inverted it. Now, go to your NASA.jpg. And I want you to do the same thing you did to the space image, where you unlock the layer, and move and use your move tool and move it onto your astronaut.jpg. So click, drag over to astronaut and drop it on. And just move it so you can see the whole image, the whole part of the NASA logo. It's okay. So now with the NASA logo, we're going to use a different tool to select it. And this time we want to select the red, not the white. Because this is a nice, easy, high contrast image. It's going to be easier to just select where it says NASA. So the third tool down is normally your lasso tool. It looks like one of those cowboy lassos. I want you to click and hold out and grab the magnetic lasso tool is what I want. So grab your magnetic lasso tool. And what you do is you click somewhere on the edge of the red and the white on the end. Click once and then just move your mouse around the edge like you're drawing it, and it kind of auto picks up where the edge is. This is only really good for very high contrast, where there's a nice, clean, easy to define line. Some of you may get that Photoshop cannot complete this error. I don't know why. It's something up with your computers, but if you can, go around the end, and you're going to have to trace both sides. And when you get to where you started, your lasso tool will now have a circle next to it, like a little outline of a circle. That means do you want to close it? And click that and close it. Now that you have the end selected, up at the top, you'll notice in your control panel, you have a white box, a double white box, a double box with white and black and white. This is similar to the paintbrush with the plus and the minus. The double white means add, and if you hover over it, it'll usually tell you. The white with the black means subtract, and the black with the white means intersect. It means only, like a Venn diagram, only where it crosses in the middle. For now, we're just going to add. So hit the double white box, and now you can add the A, the S, and the other A to your selection. I want you guys to just try the different selection tools, so this way you get used to them. Because sometimes you can do a mask in 30 seconds if you're really good. Or if you're doing an extremely detailed mask, it could take you upwards of an hour or 2 hours, depending on what you're doing. So today I'm literally just showing you guys the 4 most easiest and common ways to mask. So I'm going to continue going around my logo. Close off my A and my S. And let me add in my last A. And if you messed up and got a little bit of white there, you're welcome to go grab your quick selection tool and use the minus feature and delete it. But once you have all 4 of your layers selected, go back, make sure you have your NASA layer selected in the layers panel. Make sure that's what's selected. And then go ahead and click the add a layer mask. And then that way just the red is showing. And I'm going to move mine. I'm going to move my NASA logo just down here, just so it's out of my way. Once you have the NASA logo done, go ahead and go to your future.jpg and drag it. Do the same thing. Unlock your layer and drag it over to your astronaut image. And click and drag over to our astronaut. And this one's kind of big, so you're going to have to do Control T and resize it. Hit enter when you're done resizing it. Go to your shape tool, which is towards the bottom of your toolbar. Go to your shape tool and select a shape. So click hold and pick a shape. So I'm going to pick a circle for now. And once you get your shape tool, wherever your future image is, this is, by the way, this image is kind of what NASA thought 2020 would look like back in the 50s. And boy, were they wrong. So go ahead and just draw a shape over that image and make it roughly the size, like make it at least the size of the image or smaller. And make sure that the image is filled, the shape is filled in with something. And then go back to your move tool. Once you get that done, go back to your move tool. Just make sure it's filled with something. So that's there. Now, in your layers panel, everyone go Yeah, everyone go to your layers panel, and whatever shape you have, drag it so it is below, one layer below your feature image. You want it just below your one shape, you want just below that image. All right, click the layer that has your feature image on it. Go ahead and make sure that layer is selected in your layers panel. And we're going to create what's called a clipping mask. And clipping mask basically says we're going to take this image and I want you to only let it peekaboo out through the shape that is below. So it can only show, and it's kind of like I want it to peekaboo like a cardboard cutout right behind whatever shape it is. So now that you have that layer selected with your image, go up to your panel, above your control panel, click layer up there, and about halfway down, it will say create clipping mask. Go ahead and click that. So it'll say create clipping mask. It's about halfway down. It's underneath layer mask and vector mask. Click create clipping mask. And now it can only look out through there. Now the future layer, you can use your move tool and move it around, but it's still only going to be able to show through where that shape is. And same thing with that shape. You can click the shape layer and move the shape around independently. So they are not linked, they're still independent, but you can only look through. If you want to move both, then you have to click one layer, hold down Shift on your keyboard, and select the second layer. So you have two layers selected in your layers panel, and then you can move them together. So like I like how it's cut out there, but I just want it to sit over here. All right, for the last part, go over to your plane.jpg. And same thing, unlock the layer, drag it over to your astronaut image. All right, so add a layer mask to the plane image once you have it over in your astronaut. And go to your brush tool. So on the left-hand side, it's this tool kind of usually right underneath the Band-Aid. It's also, keyboard command is just B for it. Now, down at the bottom of your toolbar, you will see these two boxes. They'll be filled with colors. We want them to be white and black when we are doing this. If they're not white and black, the easiest way to set it to default is right above it. There's like a little mini version. Click there and it will reset to default. So you want that black and white, and this is to reset to default. Now, we're going to have to switch back and forth between white and black. So the way to do that is you can either click this button right here where it looks like a corner with two arrows coming out of it. You can click that and it will swap back and forth. Or, this is probably one of the most frequently used keyboard commands you're going to learn, is X. It's just X on your keyboard. We'll swap it back and forth. Now, make sure in your layers panel you have your mask selected. Not the image, but the mask for the image. If we have black on our top, that's the color we are painting with. Black, when you paint it, will hide and let us see through. to whatever we have behind it. If we switch to white, so we hit X, flip it over to white, white shows. So like when we mess up, we want to show it again, white shows. So this is how you would make like a custom mask, something without the selection tools where you want painted in. This is how you would do it. Or you can go to the gradient tool, which is about 4 below the brush tool. It's this box with a black and white gradient in it, where it goes black, fade to white. You can click that or hit G on your keyboard. And as long as these two colors down here are black and white, so is it up here. If they're not, you need to set back to default. But you can click there, and again, as long as you're on the mask and you're painting with black and white, you can make it a gradient. And that's the last way to make a gradient, is using that, just painting black and white, either with your brush tool or your gradient tool.